Hi guys, so many things happening, but a lot of you asked about the Sovereign Wealth Fund and, why we would do it and what it would do and all of that. So that's what we're going to talk about today, though I did pull some additional headlines, which when we go to the Q&A, we'll talk about those. So let's just dive right in. And oh, by the way, if you would please hit that like button. Let's have lots of comments and lots of chatter because that helps the algorithm put this information out. And this is information we all need. For me, it's always about educated choices. So let's just start. Here you go. A plan for establishing a United States sovereign wealth fund. And what is a sovereign wealth fund? That are government-owned investment vehicles managing financial assets. So those are really mostly intangible assets. We'll talk more about that in a second. The economic rules of thumb don't add up, though. So some of the naysayers. Creating a sovereign wealth fund suggests that a country has savings and that it will go up and can be allocated to this. So in other words, they run a surplus. But do we run a surplus here in the U.S.? No. As the world reserve currency, we're almost forced into running debts and deficits. But as you can see, keeping in mind that these gray bars are official recessions, you can see that from the beginning, every time, and this, by the way, is total public debt, every time we hit a gray bar, the speed at which we grow the debt has escalated. And this is 2020, and you can see where we are from there. And in fact, currently, we are sitting at roughly $36.5 trillion worth of debt just in the total public debt. There's so much more that is hidden that it's ridiculous, but okay. Here you can see it for yourself, and there are things that are going on that you need to be aware of, which I'm going to talk about in a second. This is the federal surplus, which happened over here, and that was just an accounting trick, wasn't a reality, to deficits, and this is just through October of 2024. So those are going to escalate. But what we're looking at for the full year of 2024 is a minus 1.8 trillion. So where are the savings that countries normally use to create these sovereign wealth funds? They're not there. Not only that, but we postponed the debt ceiling fight. That's coming up again. And right now, what we're seeing between the Trump administration and Democrats, so Republicans and Democrats, there is a big potential battle looming. And we cannot know at this moment whether or not they're going to raise the debt ceiling or whether the Democrats will use that as a weapon against what President Trump is trying to do. So that is looming large. But the point is that I want you to understand is we don't have any excess savings. So you got to ask where that money is going to come from, potentially tariffs or potentially just creating more. I don't know, but we've got a lot more debt that we're issuing. There is no savings. So I'm not really sure where the funding for that will be, but we'll find out, I'm sure. And in the meantime, what do governments typically do with the money that they have in their sovereign wealth funds? While most of it goes into equities, private equity investments, and sustainable energy projects, which quite frankly, those have been dismantled here in the U.S. So I guess they can just focus on equities, private equities, public equities. And could this be a tool to keep this whole game going? It's just a thought, but I want you to think about what is the purpose of it since we don't have savings to use. How are we going to create that? But here are some concerns about it. Number one concern are transparency issues. we already don't have very much transparency in how our tax dollars are being spent or used. Geopolitical tensions have led to investment restrictions, but we are certainly in a period where, if indeed they are going to use the tariffs for funding this, which is one of the discussions. I don't know what that answer is going to be yet. We'll know when they publish it. But can you see how that could be a bit of an issue on where that funding will come from in the midst of geopolitical tensions? Because even with our allies, tensions are brewing. And concerns about foreign influence have grown, especially with sovereign wealth funds acquiring strategic assets in foreign markets. Can you see how the globalization of the world, even though as far as supply chains, that's breaking down, fiscally, it's growing. And this could be a concern with a sovereign wealth fund using the funds in there to have undue influence on other countries. So I wanted to also talk, because what we're looking at is in the spot gold market making all-time highs, breaking above that 2,900, and everybody's going to go, woo-hoo-hoo! But let me tell you a few things. Number one, it still does not reflect its fundamental value. So is it overvalued? Heck no, it's not even marginally close to that. It's time to build your position if you haven't. If you've already started your sound money strategy, it's time to get that done. What are you waiting for? But looking at the spot gold market, right? I mean, where are we headed this year? I get that question all the time. Honestly, the only reason why I care about the spot market is because that's what you look at and you think that, oh, well, that must be true. But this is a tool of manipulation. It is not a tool of true price discovery. So while this is a whole lot of fun, I want to point out to you this little gap here. We likely will get a pullback at some point because you can see how much it's run just this month alone. And with spot silver, well, we have that conclusion of the cup that's coming upon us. And quite frankly, I didn't really have time to draw this in. Can you see this kind of mini cup here? Well, we've had a breakout. And honestly, I've shown you this so many times, even though you might get a little pullback in there, once that breakout occurs, it's more likely to come to conclusion. So and I'm seeing this happen in different countries as well. So that's where we are with, spot silver and what's really happening in the visible markets. But underneath, as we know, because we've been talking about this, there are large major entities that are taking delivery of, these are the intangible markets. That's what the U.S. puts out, just lots of derivatives. And as we spoke about last week, and if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it, because this is still unfolding, where there is somebody, usually they don't take delivery on these contracts. Usually it's just about a pickup in money, but now there are some major players in here that are taking delivery of the gold and of the silver. And Bank of England is loaning them sovereign gold. So the gold that countries are holding at the Bank of England for safekeeping are being shipped out to meet the physical demand. This is really what's going to break the back of these intangible markets. And so when you see the Bank for International Settlements saying gold is the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk, all of these contracts that we put out, all these derivatives, they're running a whole lot of risk. And there's more. I'll be talking about that more as this whole thing progresses, if you didn't watch the piece that came out last week. But I wanted to do something a little bit different as well, because what you're looking at, the spot silver chart, is a series of higher and higher lows. You got your breakout out here, I mean, we could conclude this cup at any point. So, needless to say, spot is moving. Now, this, which is just a raw coin, is going to follow spot. This, if it's a high pop and lots of blemishes, will also be influenced more by what happens with spot. But your better coins, they're not influenced by that because they're longer term holders. So that's where the biggest bargain is. And I just need you guys to be well aware of it. And I wanted to try something else here today because there's so many headlines that are coming at us all over the place. And I really want to have a conversation with you guys, not just questions. Let's have that conversation. But now on her watch, the doomsday clock. And I just thought this was kind of interesting. Keepers of the symbolic timepiece have a new leader. This doomsday clock has been around since for 80 years. And at the end of January, the keeper of the doomsday clock announced that the world was 89 seconds to midnight, a metaphor for our proximity to extinction. Do I really think that we're going to be extinct? No, not really. But the financial system is extinct. And so that's the way I'm reading that. It makes a whole lot of sense. We are very close. We are at the end of this currency's life cycle. So when I thought that, I thought, okay, well, that's very applicable. The other thing that I want to talk about, and it's a little bit difficult. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. It's really difficult for me to say everything that I want to say because I do not get political on this. I stay economic. But quite honestly, there is a showdown that is emerging over the limits of presidential power. This is huge because it impacts all of the markets. Markets like certainty. That's why when the Federal Reserve and the global central banks were using forward guidance, they were letting the banks and the investment banks know what they were going to do so they could get into position to benefit from it. Well, they gave up the forward guidance, but now in this new administration, President Trump uses tariffs, uses threats, uses many things, and not just against our enemies, but against our allies. And we saw what happened. Is this an extension to what happened with Russia, right? When we cut them out of, when President Biden cut them out of the financial system, well, that part of the world and many others have gone around the system. I'm concerned, I'm not going to lie about this, I am concerned that we are ticking off our allies and pushing them away from us. But we'll see. Judge says Trump violated order on funding. A federal judge on Monday said the White House has defied his order to release billions of dollars in federal grants, marking the first time a judge has expressly declared that the Trump White House was disobeying a judicial mandate. This is a story that is unfolding, and there are lots of questions as to whether or not some of the things that are happening with Elon Musk, etc., are constitutional. Well, the Constitution, quite frankly, has been dismantled. If that is indeed the case, it didn't just start now, right? They've been dismantling the Constitution that put the individual at the top. And then the state governments were supposed to support the individual's rights. And then the federal government was supposed to support the states that are supposed to support the individual rights. That's been turned on its head, right? That's been turned on its head. So I don't think it's a bad thing for the real Constitution to be coming up and for us all to get familiar with what our rights really are, because we've lost a lot of them. And I say it's time to take it back. And I say that doing a global sound money movement is the way to do it, because we vote with our wallets, we vote with our purses, and there are so many different ways for every individual at any income level to accumulate gold as the primary currency metal and silver as the secondary. You know, you see me wear jewelry all the time. It's because, and you certainly have seen my chopsticks and you know, all my flatware and stuff like that. And that's because gold and silver at its base in any form is monetary. So here's another one that really caught my attention as well. A blueprint for bending the media that has Nixon all over it. If you're my age, then you remember what was going on with President Nixon and Watergate and the big scandal, and also the fact that he was the one that officially took us off the gold standard and handed over control to the central banks. And their job is to regulate. It's not to fight inflation, for goodness sakes. That's just stupid, and it's not true, because inflation is baked into the currency. Their job is to regulate the rate and speed of it so that you don't make any different choices. You accept lower wages and you accept higher costs, because if they can do it slowly enough, that 2% target, that is how they define price stability, which is ridiculous. But we do know that perception management is an official policy of our government. We know that. And so I think it's interesting that they're talking about going back all the way back to Nixon, when this most current iteration that died in 2008 and is really dying now is going away. I think it's interesting that they referred back to it, because that was the beginning of the end, and we are at the end of the end. So let's take some questions. Okay. Bible Preacher asks, what is better, 1 ounce of silver or 1 gram of gold? All I can afford is fractional gold. And that's absolutely fine. They perform different functions, so you have to determine what you're trying to accomplish. So as an example, and maybe this will help you, if I wanted to make sure that I could, well, actually this is true anyway, I want to make sure that I can always pay my property taxes, because there's no way for me to put my house on my back and walk away with the property. So for that, I love fractional gold. It will help you always be able to pay your property taxes. On the other hand, if my goal is to make sure that I can always put a tank of gas in my car, or I can buy strawberries, then I'm doing that with silver. You really need a combination of the two. There's nothing wrong with fractional. I own fractional gold. Here's a whole bunch of little fractional coins that I have on here, right? So fractional is fine. Just define what you're trying to accomplish, and that's what determines, do I do gold? It's not, do I do gold or silver? If you can afford gold, do it. It's the primary currency metal. And how many times have I shown you inside of currencies how gold has outperformed US dollars against those other currencies? Because they always talk about the strong dollar. Well, it's relative to other currencies. And you see how that performs at the end of the day when you make a comparison, even between the manipulated spot markets. I mean, gold does outperform everything because it is the primary currency metal. But you absolutely need both, and it needs to be based on what you're trying to accomplish. Goldens and Coons ask, good afternoon, Lynette. Do you think rental properties are a good investment, or will the government just take over the rental property market and price controls to making it unprofitable? Look, on average, on a historical level, you should be netting 10% out of your real estate investment. Right now, you aren't able to do that. So that tells you that it is severely overvalued. Also, I've done pieces in Arthur. Maybe you can put a link into the piece that I did for how real estate responds, okay, and gold in real estate. There is a time for you to buy investment properties. You do whatever you're comfortable with, but this, in my opinion, this is not the time to buy that because you're buying something that is severely overvalued. And to your point, governments aren't going to take over rental property, but they will put caps, as we saw back in 2020, right? We saw this. They put caps on how much rent you could charge while your insurance and your taxes and your costs were going up. And so that is what happens during hyperinflation as well. The government will cap how much you as the landlord can charge, but they will not cap your costs. Much better to accumulate gold. This is the kind of gold that I use for that, because right now we've got real estate that is at nosebleed levels while we've got gold that is severely undervalued. That's going to flip-flop. And when we see that cup formation in the real estate market, that tells us that the smart money has recognized this undervalued circumstance and they're quietly accumulating. That, my friends, is when you will liquidate some of this to buy that rental property, that income-producing property. Today, no, it makes no sense to me. Why would you buy into something that is severely overvalued when you can buy something that's real, that runs no counterparty risk, that is severely undervalued? So, call us. We'll talk to you about the strategy. It's not rocket science. It's actually very simple to understand, which I personally think that's what investment should be. Because if they make it really complicated and you can't understand it, how do you know that you're not being cheated? How do you know that you're not being lied to? Physical gold and silver in your possession are savings, and they're the truth. Not this paper spot market. That's why I like to go to the PCGS charts, because that's only the physical markets. So that's the way that I would frankly be working with this. And Gag asks, is silver going to be declared a strategic metal, and what does that mean for U.S. stackers? Well, it is a strategic metal, and it could certainly be declared as a strategic metal. And back in 1933, they did indeed confiscate silver, and certainly during the World War, they needed silver. But silver gets used up in industry, and it's also mined really as a byproduct. Like this rock here, I don't know if the light catches it enough, but this rock here has a whole bunch of gold in it and a whole bunch of silver in it. They would be mining the gold and then getting the silver, right? Does that make sense? So silver is a byproduct of mining, although with the price and what we've been seeing in that shift from the physical over in London to satisfy the physical demand here in the U.S., they're even flying silver over. So, quite honestly, it is a strategic metal. I don't have the same kind of concerns around confiscation of silver because it gets used up, and it's used in every single area of the global markets. But yeah, if they can do, meaning central banks and governments can do anything they want, I'm not as concerned about that. But if you are, just accumulate the constitutional metal, pre-64, 90% silver, dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollars. That is more likely to be considered a collectible than the brand new stuff. This is a brand new Silver Eagle. And Bingo asks, do you think that all the breastfeeding versus China is no more than kabuki theater, and that in reality a deal is being done based on gold, Bitcoin, etc.? I think there's a lot of kabuki that is indeed going on, but the markets don't really know what to make of it. And I think that puts us in an extraordinarily dangerous position, because a lot of times mistakes are made and not everybody's going to take it just as kabuki theater. So yes, I do think there is a lot of that that's going on, and it's about taking control. Goldens and Coons ask, will real estate prices fall during hyperinflation? Oh, yes, they will, my friend. Oh, yes, they will. I've got over 4,800 currencies, and you see the same thing every time. Because one of the things also, the prices implode because nobody can afford to buy it. And 25 ounces of gold on average, watch that piece that I did on gold and real estate. But 25 ounces of gold buys an entire city block, buildings and all, during hyperinflation. Taxes, property taxes keep going up. How do governments generate most of their income? It is through taxation. So even if you had that property fully paid off, if you cannot meet your property taxes, you will lose the property. So yes, real estate prices 100%, because they're also, the income is capped, but what you're going to have to pay, like I said earlier, in taxes and insurance and other costs and maintenance and all of that, the strategy accounts for all of it. It also accounts for enabling, because, okay, one thing we know for sure, if a property is not inhabited, it deteriorates a whole lot faster. So even during hyperinflation, you don't want to count on the income from that. You want to have enough gold and silver put back that you can meet those rising costs. Make sure that you have good tenants in there that will help you maintain the property. And then what kind of loyalty are you going to have on the other side of it? So that is part of the strategic planning in the sound money portfolio that we put together. Call us. Let's talk about it. And Talk with Tiffany asks, what event would have to happen to reevaluate gold and silver prices? Well, number one, you should understand that every single global central bank, including the U.S., has what's called the gold revaluation account. And so gold is constantly, and so is silver through the spot market. In some ways, it's constantly being revalued. Hence, we're making new highs on the spot market. But if what you're saying is what would cause the government to revalue gold, it is the desire to get your confidence, the public confidence, back after they have lost that. They always, 100% of the time. So there are no exceptions to this rule. Therefore, even though this time could be different, it is not likely to be different. And so, and please don't go away from the question that I'm asking in case I need to refer back to it. But the government will, and the central bank will revalue gold when they need to get the public confidence back. The problem that we're seeing in Zimbabwe is that they lied again to the people, and the currency is not backed by gold. It is pegged to gold, and therefore it was easy to revalue, because if a currency is actually backed, that gives you, the public, the ability to walk in with one thing and walk out with the gold, and create restrictions around governments and what they can do, which is not what they like. But that's what that's why they'll revalue the gold. And silver will as well. revalue at that time because, again, it's a byproduct, but both of them are used in every single sector of the global economy, giving you the broadest base of functionality and the broadest base of demand. And when you're going into a currency fight, do you want something that's used in one place that the government can say, boop, no longer money? Or do you want gold and silver that's above all central banks and all governments? In gold and silver, I trust. I don't trust the governments. I don't trust the central bankers. They don't have my best interest at heart. Okay, and farm your backyard. I'm so interested to hear your opinions on this. And I'm wondering if we were to miraculously become a debt-free nation, would this be a smart financial vehicle to have already been created? If you're talking about I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. If you're referring to the sovereign wealth fund, no, it's a vehicle to control what you see in the markets, so that you keep your wealth in the intangible markets and makes it easier to transfer your wealth their way. So no, I don't think a sovereign wealth fund is really, quite honestly, appropriate, because you're going in and supporting the markets that are based on this. It's about supporting them and keeping the lie going. I don't want lies. I want truth. How can you make an educated choice when you don't know what the truth is, right? How many times can you be lied to when you don't know the truth? If that is not what you're referring to, farmyard, backyard, please let Arthur know, and I'll answer it again. But if you're referring to the sovereign wealth fund, no, it's just about keeping the game going and manipulating the markets. And Adam Enriquez, Adam, okay.
What's up, Adam?
Yes. Sorry I'm out today. Miss ya. When you say that silver is ending its cup formation, does that mean the price will stop rising or that it will spike rapidly soon? Once it breaks above that level, it will rapidly rise, even though we could see a pullback like we did with gold. But really, once it breaks that resistance level on top, just like gold did, spot gold did, then it rises rapidly after that, even if there's a momentary pullback. And if I didn't answer your question, Adam, let me know. And I can put the charts up. We can pull that if you want me to. That's entirely up to you.
Farm Your Backyard says that it was exactly talking about what you were saying.
Awesome. Really, if ever I say something and you don't understand it, even if it was someone else's question, my goal is to translate this financial noise so that you can make educated choices that put your best interest first. So that's what I'm trying to do. Help me. Because if I really do want to explain this. And Salt Light asks, for long-term holders, is gold and silver eagles U.S. Mint recommended and why? Well, there are a lot of people that will recommend that, but this is my only, I have my bracelet, which I'm not wearing, but this is the only eagle along with the few coins that are in my bracelet that I personally hold. And the reason is because there's so many forms of confiscation. I just started doing this series to show you all the different ways. They use all different names, but they've been confiscating our wealth since the day we were each born. Why in the world would they stop at the very end and allow you to hold your wealth? This is monetary metal. You can hold this in an IRA. This is pre-33 raw. It has exactly the same gold content weight, and it's reasonably close to the same price. Why can't I hold this in an IRA? I can hold pretty much anything else in an IRA. I can hold Bitcoin in an IRA. I can hold real estate in an IRA, stocks and bonds and all of that. Why can't I hold this? Because this is classified as a collectible. That is the category that I want to be in, because it's the category of the people that either write the laws or can influence those that write the laws. So you do whatever you're comfortable with. And I'll also say, does it have to be one or the other? Why not? If you are really, really set on bullion, why not do this, but then make sure you do this to offset? I always ask myself, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? If you're just buying bullion, yeah, darn well better be right, because what you're actually living on, thanks to Tiger Stacker, is hopium. I got to get a bigger sign for this. You're living on hopium. You better be right. If you own this, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. But if you're going to own this, own some of this to properly diversify your metals portfolio so that it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. And Wolf said, and for those, did anybody, I always kind of assume that you've heard my Uncle Al's story about 1 million times, but that was such a huge influence on me. I was 10 years old. It was 1964. And my parents and I were at Uncle Al's house. And he said, come on, I want to show you something. And he took us in a back bedroom. And in that back bedroom, he had 2 tall floor safes. And he opened up the door of those floor safes and he said to us, if anything should happen to me, Aunt Bertie will be well taken care of for the rest of her life because of what's in these safes. So I turned around to look, and he had a whole bunch of raw, this is 1964, pre-33 coins, because he was a high-end antique dealer. And he'd go into wealthy houses and he would buy stuff. And they would say, oh, I have these gold coins. I don't know what to do with them. And so he bought them. It was significant knowing what I know now. He had at least 3,000 ounces between those 2 safes, 3 monster boxes in each safe, maybe more than that. But the reason why that's such a significant story is because at that time it was illegal to hold more than 5 ounces of gold in any other way than the way that he was doing it. That, I've been groomed for this moment in time. I don't think any of that was an accident. I think it was to teach me and to guide me. And the more I see about what's going on, the bigger my commitment is. And Wolf asks, is there a chance that gold will dip and then rise again? Too expensive for me now. Number one, the answer is yes, because nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down. You're going to have some bouncing along the way, and there is a gap. Let me go back to that. Can we pull this up again, please? Okay. Now, this is a kind of a shorter term chart, but I've got it up, and you can bring it. Okay. Can I make that bigger? No, I don't think it'll let me make it bigger. But right here, right where my cursor is a gap up. So in other words, it closed at, looks like 27.53 or 4 or something like, something like that. And then it opened at, it looks like 27.70 or something like that. I cannot tell you exactly when, but I can tell you that at some point all gaps get filled, right? So will gold pull back? Yes, it's had a huge run, and technically it should pull back. Having said that, though, the earlier question is, well, should I buy silver or should I buy fractional gold? How about, Wolf, you give us a call and kind of define what you're trying to accomplish? And there are always ways to buy it regardless of what your budget is, because gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base. You've got to have both. And I don't mind fractional in either one. I own fractional in both areas because it depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's not too expensive, because if you truly understood that gold right now, as we're sitting here, is somewhere north of $40,000, then $2,900 is chump change. It's nothing, nothing. And our Moosehead asks, conversation piece question. Would you think that you could develop skills today that will serve you better after a reset? 100%. 100%. You know, it's a great opportunity to really understand what money is truthfully, so that you're proactive versus reactive. There's also a lot of skill sets everybody used to have, or almost everybody used to have, a kitchen garden. And so they produced a number of their foods. And we've been trained to just go to the grocery store. Let's learn that skill again. It's better for you, it's fresher, and it's a lot less expensive. And oh, by the way, how about those backyard chickens? When I'm finding that eggs are $12 a dozen, and I'm producing, multiple dozens, about a dozen, I guess, a day right now on the new birds, because the new duck kind of took over, so everybody's getting used to it, and then we'll get more eggs. But we had this whole conversation yesterday when I was in the office, and people saying, my God, I think it was at Costco or the grocery store or whatever, they were limiting you to 18 eggs or something like that.
Yeah, Costco, they limit you to 2 pack of eggs, 2 pack of 18, basically.
Wow. Okay, so having a few backyard birds fits your needs. The eggs are, Arthur, how much more delicious are the fresh eggs?
Way better. The color is just way better. The quality is just uncomparable, honestly. So get your fresh eggs.
Because you can control what you're feeding the animals, right? Instead of it being in a big mill where the chickens just get the cheapest crap that they can possibly do. Even the crumbled organics. So yeah, I think this is a great time to learn new skills. Whatever it is that you're interested in, and create new, really good habits that you can carry with you after the reset. SB69 asks, I have a small nest egg. I have gold and silver. Where could I invest it to grow it? Okay, that's a great question. And here's the way I personally look at it. Of course, you have to do whatever you're comfortable with. But I always want the lion's share of my wealth in an undervalued asset that's in a long-term positive trend, and the least amount of my wealth is in an overvalued asset or instrument that is in a long-term negative trend. So how do you know that? Well, first of all, I always go back to fundamental value. And when you look on the purchasing power chart, that's the real trend that we're dealing with. And the Federal Reserve themselves are telling you that the true value of this stuff is zero. Zero. So that means that anything that you can only liquidate it for, like your stocks, your mutual funds, your ETF, all that stuff, these are only denominated in dollars. So when the dollar loses all purchasing power, what do you have? You have nothing. On the other side of it, knowing the fundamental value of an ounce of gold is like over 40,000 and it's over 2,000 in an ounce of silver, those are severely undervalued. And beyond that, this is the most undervalued asset that there is. That won't be true forever, but it is right now. So yeah, have most of your wealth, and you have some gold and silver. I mean, I've been accumulating since 2002, and I'm probably more prepared than anybody I know. But do I have enough gold and silver? You never have enough. You never have enough. What that is savings. And right now what you want to do is get to safety. I'm not saying that we aren't going to see a melt up in all of the markets, because that's about keeping you stuck in there. But I'm going to tell you, I couldn't tell you 1 second before we're going to get a crash and you're going to lose your choices. Why? you want to put most of your wealth in an undervalued asset that is in a long-term positive trend, and that is physical gold and physical silver in your possession. Buy more. If you have a small nest egg, there's a certain amount of cash you need. There's a certain amount of gold and silver you need. Call us. We'll walk you through it so that you can establish your own sound money strategy. And John B. asks, how would you convert silverware into currency? Who or what companies do that? How would they value the silverware? Great question. First of all, there are about 3,000 companies and probably more on a global basis that will take your gold and your silver in any form, because sterling silver is 92.5% pure. So if you're talking to like an antique dealer, this happens to be a Russian piece, but if you're talking to an antique dealer, what they'll do is they'll weigh it, and it doesn't really matter what the condition is. I mean, this is kind of a caca piece, not a great piece. And it's not even that much silver because there's like wood in it and bristles and stuff like that. But what they would do is I'd break it out of this because this has more value for the silver. They will put it on a scale. And if you go to a smelter, they will give you so much beneath spot. If you go to a pawn shop, I mean, if you go someplace like that, their job is to buy it from you for as little as they can pay you for it. So you have to be aware. If it's coins, well, then now you're talking about an even broader buyer, but it's easy. Even our wholesaler, don't hold me to this, but I know that there were wholesalers that I could sell them this by weight. And guess what? I bought it by weight. You could go, this is what I'm talking about. Honestly, come to Zang Enterprises. We can help you position into the right gold and silver. However, I also go to antique dealers. If you offer to pay them by weight at spot, if they take it to a smelter, they're going to get less than that. So talk to your antique dealers. They don't necessarily really understand what's truly going on. There's all different ways that you can accumulate. Most of this stuff I got at estate sales and yard sales and things like that. Used to be able to buy it all the time. Now it's not as easy. But there are lots of ways to convert it into whatever the currency happens to be at that time. If you're working with us and it's time to liquidate, we'll liquidate into whatever that current currency is. And that's what a good dealer will do. But for that, that's easy. You can take it to any pawn shop. You can take it to any jeweler. You can take it to any dealer, antique dealer. I mean, there are lots of places where you can liquidate that into whatever the currency is. That's easy. And Powerful Bible Promises. What do you think about XRP crypto? Will it be in the Sovereign Wealth Fund? Well, anything that they want to support the visible price can be in that Sovereign Wealth Fund. In May, I am going to the XRP conference in Las Vegas. Will it survive? Sure. If you look on the Bank for International Settlements money flower, there is a small place for private cryptocurrencies. And I think you can also see that Bitcoin has been well integrated into the system. However, when they do those overnight revaluations, you're going to see those plummet. You're going to see a whole lot of cryptocurrencies out there that will not survive it because they have not yet run the test of time. That's coming up. So do I think XRP is likely to be around? It's a possibility. I think Bitcoin is also a possibility because those have been targeted and integrated. But at the current price, no, it's going to reset. That's how that happens. So for me personally, I'm not positioning into cryptocurrencies until I see who will survive. And then, because I'm holding my purchasing power with this, I'll be able to buy a lot more of them. But I'm also going to know who's going to survive this. I don't know what corporations are going to survive this yet, right? We don't know that. That's a future that we have yet to see. But once we're clear on it, we're ready to make our purchases. And Chet Zokdako, if I butchered your name, I'm sorry. Do you think when we get the gold spike here in the next 144 days to 365 days, silver will go back to 10 to 20 to 1 from 85 to 1? Okay, so what he's really asking me is that gold-silver ratio, which right now is 80 to 1, and historically at times it goes back to that 20 to 1 or 10 to 1 level. And having done a lot of studies on this and what happens to gold and silver through hyperinflation, which I think we have a video that I did on that. So you can look there. We will see that ratio go narrow, but it kind of depends on when the hyperinflation hits, because after a certain point, then it grows wider again. And that really is because gold is the primary currency metal. And even though it's used in every single sector of the global economy, it is indestructible and it's still the primary currency metal. So it's what they do those resets again. Silver is more of an industrial metal as well as a financial metal. And so if the global economy is in trouble, then you're not going to see that happen again. It could happen. It certainly could happen. There's a lot of historic precedents for it. But during hyperinflation, gold always outperforms. It just always does. And I own both. I own gold and I own silver because it's for different purposes. And Christopher Bick asks, question, your thoughts on ceasing the minting of pennies and nickels? Hoard them? No, because they're base metal. Now, the old pennies are copper. So if you want to accumulate those, they have more value. Nickels are just nickels. So no, I would not hoard them because they don't really possess any great value. But if you have the copper pennies, then that would make sense. Nickels are made out of nickel. The only nickels that weren't were during World War II when they put silver in the nickels, but they're not even all that collectible, honestly. And farm your backyard, which I agree in 100%. How long do they think the dip will go when we have the correction? I'd like to position myself to buy more gold. I don't think we're going to have, as you can see when you look on the gold chart, not long because of all the uncertainty in the markets. That's one of the things that is happening when the markets are uncertain. What's going to happen? Will there be tariffs? Won't there be tariffs? Even though they said they're going to be, 25% on aluminum and steel coming into this country, they don't go into effect for a few weeks. So maybe they'll be canceled, back and forth and back and forth. It is more than likely that the run in the metals continues because of the market uncertainty. So you can buy more, but don't wait for the dip. Buy more when it does dip, sure, but consistently accumulate now. Get your sound money strategy in place, become your own central bank, and get it executed, along with security in food, water, energy, security itself, barterability, for me is silver, gold, wealth preservation, community, get out there, develop your local community to create that security in all of those areas and have a secure shelter. These are the things that we need no matter what we're going through to retain our choices, right? Which is critically important. and to have a reasonable standard of living. Everybody's going to go through this. Nobody is going to be able to avoid it. You just get to choose, how do I want to go through this storm? How do I want to go through this transition and this reset into a new social, economic, and financial system? In gold and silver, I trust. Akash Yaknik, please forgive me if I butchered your name. Is there a way to take a loan out on gold and silver but maintain ownership of the asset? The answer to that is, in some places, yes. The problem with that is then you are taking out debt, so you have to be in a position to pay off that debt or you're going to lose your gold and silver. But there are banks that do take that into account, and there are different places around the world that do take that into account, and different companies that will loan you money without, and that's actually happening more and more with gold and silver and also fine art and fine antiques. For the wealthy, they don't want to liquidate it, they want to borrow against it. Do I think that's a great idea? Not really, because then I'm risking that asset. I want something that runs no counterparty risk. You put debt on top of it, it's counterparty risk. And Sandy Anderson asks, Lynette, can you please give some examples of what could get the hyperinflation started? Wow. Well, a lot more of this, which is on its way, make no mistake about it. And also understand that the hyperinflation, they've already hyperinflated the money supply. The only thing that really hasn't happened is in those layers of confidence. That's what's holding this together. But those layers of confidence have been breaking down. And it started in 2008 with bank-to-bank confidence. So banks stopped loaning to other banks because they didn't trust that they'd get the money back. Then it was central bank to central bank in 2015 with the Swiss surprise, when all the central banks were working together in a coordinated way. And then all of a sudden, the Swiss central bank, 2 days after coming out and saying, no, this peg is our highest priority, bam, did what was in their best interest first. So central bank to central bank confidence gone. And then it was markets to central banks, when I think it was June of 22, when the central bank said, oh, no more forward guidance. So there's only one more layer of confidence. That's what I'm paying attention to. And the more quickly that inflation comes into play and is obvious, the more that confidence goes away. When that confidence goes away, which is why I was talking also recently about consumer confidence and inflation expectations, it's that confidence and those expectations. When those are gone, you will have hyperinflation. And it's already set up in the system. So it's not like they really even have to do more of this to get that. They just have to maintain your confidence, and I think we're going to see very rapid inflation. In fact, that's what they're talking about. 15 members of the FOMC committee are thinking that inflation is going to become more obvious. That will trigger it. We're very close. We're very close. And which is why I'm saying, don't wait for price pullbacks. Do what you can as you can do it while we still have that opportunity. That's all I'm saying. And Sandy Anderson asks, oh, no, she already did. Okay. And A. Kenny asks, with graded constitutional gold coins, how much of a premium over spot causes a coin to be viewed as a collectible rather than part of a hoard? That's a great question, because really what I find is that when government officials create the laws for themselves, they want those laws to be as broad as possible so that they have as much leeway as they want to interpret those laws. So in 33, it says any coin minted prior to 33 is classified as rare and unusual. Well, yeah, we can't go back to 33 and institute these again. So while this raw pre-33 coin is really just an ounce of bullion, according to the old law, it's classified as a collectible. So does it have to be a specific premium? Not according to the law. Now, that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Read the law. I don't see where it says, and it must trade at a certain premium above spot in order to be classified. It doesn't say that. So for me, that's why, and I can't hold this in an IRA. It is not classified as monetary gold. This eagle, I can hold in an IRA and it's classified as monetary gold. This is classified as a collectible. So I don't know that there's a specific premium. And Wolf asks, Gerald Salente says that the economy will really take a downturn when commercial real estate mortgages come due but can't be paid. The banks will be in real hot water and many will close. Well, first of all, I absolutely love Gerald, and everybody in the world knows it. But I think that part of the push back in office is to avoid what Gerald is talking about. But frankly, I think it's already too late. So I agree with my friend. He knows how to spot trends better than anybody. He's been doing it since the 80s, and he's absolutely brilliant. No, these mortgages are coming due. They're going to have to be rolled over. Will enough companies be able to get their people back in the offices? I don't know. There's a lot of challenge with it. So I would definitely agree that we're in a position for a huge downturn. I think a lot of that is market uncertainty, though, too. And Worth Went, should I be buying Old Penny's collector book today because they're not going to make pennies anymore? I would not be doing the new pennies, but if you want to accumulate copper pennies, just understand that for me, and for everybody actually, this is a currency life cycle issue, so my focus is on the monetary metals, gold and silver. Copper is an industrial metal, but it certainly has a lot of value. So I don't think it's awful if you want to accumulate the old pennies, the copper pennies. The new pennies, no, they're base metal. They're nothing. There's nothing. Useless knowledge. Lynette, in your opinion, would buying Bitcoin or crypto be the same as stating you don't support constitutional money? No, that's not really the way I view it. But having studied how they make these transitions, they've got to get your buy-in. They've got to make it so that you don't realize that anything has changed and that you cooperate with it. So there's always a point where they allow these things to run, because when prices move up, that's what catches people's eyes. It's not a vote against constitutional money. I think it's more not understanding what money is, which, this should be taught in grade schools, and it's not. And it's also not understanding currency life cycles and how they make these transitions. I would say that that's probably more what it is. I support constitutional money. I believe in it. I don't like the fact that the Constitution is being even more destroyed. This did not just happen. It's been happening, right? I liken it to Megan, my daughter Megan, when she was 4, and she was misbehaving, and I put her in her room, and I said, "Don't you come out of that room until I tell you." And I was sitting and talking on the phone, and back then that was a landline, so I was stationary in one place. And I'm sitting there chatting, and before I know it, she's there with a black marker, looked me dead in the eyes, and went like this. So when I went back to look between where she put it on the wall in front of my face to where her room was, there were black marks all along the wall. So she was testing me, right? And we are all being tested. How can we get away with this? How much can we get away with? It's all a test. So no, I wouldn't say that. I would just say that it's because you're being nudged in a direction that supports what those that are in power want, not your best interest. And this is the last question. Jess P. Simas, will the pre-1933 go up relatively to bullion gold? Let's say prices go 10 times, say, into pre-33. The answer is yes, they do, because they are more rare. And the way that you know this is 1 ounce of gold, right? That's all. And it pretty much trades like 1 ounce of gold. This has been in circulation. This one has not been in circulation. It's mint state. There's a lot more of these because remember, this was created to be in circulation. This never made it into circulation, so it is more rare and it has fewer blemishes. So this is the way that it works. You go into an auction and there's 10 coins and everybody wants one. So wherever the bidding opens up, that's what everybody pays. They walk away and everybody's happy. But there's still 10 people there and there's one of these and everybody wants it. Well, whoever's willing to pay the most gets it, but you still had 9 other people that wanted it. So when it comes back on the market, yes, that price will go up, just kind of like what we're seeing right now in the spot market, because there's somebody that's taking delivery of the gold. So this is a true supply and demand market. And to prove my point, right? Okay, this is going to be pretty close to spot. This is actually a reasonably common coin. Happens to be a 1914 SM Mint State 63. But if I had a Mint State 66, it'd be even more rare and a lot more expensive. So call us. We'll walk you through that. But the proof that they move more is actually in the pricing that they are right now. Okay, you can see it. So for every dollars move in bullion, then there's like just kind of like a pure asset protection play. And I don't have these numbers in front of me, so forgive me if I'm off. But you'll see like close to a $2 for every $1 move in bullion in just like an asset protection. I think it's like $3.60 to a $1 move in your growth portfolio and 6.9 in your legacy portfolio. And it's really because that is a true supply and demand market. And the higher the quality, the fewer the blemishes, and the fact that it's never been in circulation and it's more rare, the more rare the coin is, yeah, that demand will push those prices up substantially versus bullion, which they mint like bunches of it. But you also need to know that with gold, there's still a finite amount, just like there is a finite amount in anything physical. So that's it today. If you want to show your support and you haven't done it yet, please make sure you like us on the way in or on the way out. Leave us a comment. Let's have this conversation and let me know what you want to talk about. I really appreciate all of you being here because it's so important for me to get this conversation going. And I can't wait. I know I keep saying this. I can't wait to do this in person. So please, I know, let's build this global community. Let's make a positive difference for the world and for our children and our great-grandchildren and all the children's afterwards. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, if not me, who? And if not now, when? Join us. One person can't do anything, but together, 100%, we can make a positive difference for the world. Until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.